The sun had not yet risen, and the world was still cloaked in darkness. Jake Williams stood at the threshold of his barn, inhaling the crisp morning air that smelled faintly of hay and the earthy aroma of damp soil. He loved this time of day. It was quiet, peaceful, and offered a moment of solitude before the hustle and bustle of the farm began. He could hear the distant sound of a rooster crowing, a gentle reminder that dawn was approaching. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. As he stepped inside, the wooden door creaked softly behind him, and he moved through the dimly lit barn, the only light coming from the faint glow of the stars still twinkling in the sky. Jake had been running the family farm for over a decade, and the routine of feeding the animals was one he cherished deeply. Each morning, he felt a sense of responsibility, not just for the livelihood of the farm but for the creatures who depended on him. He first approached Bessie, the farm's beloved cow, who greeted him with a soft moo. Bessie was a gentle giant, and Jake had raised her from a calf. As he filled her trough with fresh hay, he remembered the challenges they had faced together, weathering storms and droughts, and how they had come to rely on each other. There was something immensely satisfying about farming, he thought, as he watched Bessie munching away, her large brown eyes filled with trust. Next, he moved to the chicken coop. The hens were already awake, clucking softly as they pecked at the ground. Jake scattered feed for them, enjoying the sound of their clucking chorus. He couldn't help but smile. Each creature had its unique personality, and he loved how they all played a role in the farm's ecosystem. The warmth of the barn enveloped him, a stark contrast to the chilly air outside, and he felt a sense of contentment wash over him. As he worked, his mind wandered to the challenges he faced as a farmer. The unpredictability of the weather, the market prices, and the constant upkeep of the land weighed heavily on his shoulders. Some days, it felt as if the world outside the farm was moving on without him. He often dreamed of a more adventurous life, one that took him beyond the rolling hills and fields of corn. But as he looked around at the animals that depended on him, he knew he wouldn't trade this life for anything. Suddenly, something sparked in the corner of his eye. Jake paused, turning to glance out one of the barn's windows. At first, he thought it was merely a trick of the light, perhaps the reflection of a distant star, but as he focused, he saw a series of flickering lights dancing in the sky. His heart raced with curiosity. This was unusual, he hadn't seen anything like it before. He stepped outside to get a better look, the cool air brushing against his skin, invigorating him. The lights were unlike anything he had ever seen, bright and erratic. They moved in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. As the colors shifted from green to blue to white, he felt a twinge of unease. Jake's mind raced back to stories he had heard from old-timers at the local diner, tales of UFO sightings and strange occurrences in the area. Could this be one of those moments? He shook his head, trying to dismiss the thought. It was probably just a weather balloon or something similar. Yet, the more he watched, the more entranced he became. The lights twinkled like stars, but they were closer, pulsating in a way that felt otherworldly. A mix of excitement and fear bubbled within him. As a farmer, he had always been grounded in reality, but this was different. Was it possible that something extraordinary was about to happen? Maybe I'm just tired, he muttered to himself, chuckling nervously. He turned back to the barn, trying to shake off the creeping anxiety that had settled in his stomach. The animals needed him, and he couldn't let his imagination get the best of him. He had a job to do. But as he resumed his morning routine, he couldn't help but glance back at the sky. The lights were still there, now swirling and merging in a way that felt almost hypnotic. What if his mundane morning was about to be interrupted by something otherworldly? Could it be that he was destined for more than just tending to livestock? He returned inside the barn, but the sight of the lights lingered in his mind. As he filled the water trough for the pigs, he felt a chill run down his spine, a sense that he was being watched. His gaze darted to the open door, half expecting to see someone standing there. But there was only darkness, and the rustling of the animals brought him back to reality. Jake shook his head again, dismissing the feeling. He was just being silly. The farm kept him grounded, and there was a comfort in that routine. But deep down, he couldn't shake off the nagging thought that something was about to change. If only he could shake off the feeling that those lights were somehow connected to him. As the last stars began to fade with the approaching dawn, Jake finished his chores and stepped outside once more. The sky was beginning to lighten, and the first rays of the sun peeked over the horizon, painting the world in hues of gold and orange. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled him with a sense of hope. But the lights were still there, fading slightly but still pulsing amid the brightening sky. Jake took a deep breath, feeling the cool morning air fill his lungs. He felt a thrill of anticipation. What if today was different? What if something extraordinary awaited him? As he stood there, watching the light show above, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was on the brink of a significant transformation. "Let's see what today brings," he whispered to himself, a smile breaking across his face. Little did he know, the day was about to unfold in ways he could never have imagined, as the lights in the sky began to descend toward the earth, ready to reveal a reality that would forever change his life. Jake stood in the quiet barn, the early morning light filtering through the cracks in the wooden walls. The air was fresh, tinged with the earthy scent of hay and the faint musk of the animals. He could hear the soft rustling of the chickens pecking at their feed, the low rumble of the cows stirring, and the gentle bleating of sheep waking to the dawn. It was a comforting symphony that filled his heart with purpose. As he began his morning routine, he felt a sense of gratitude for the life he had chosen. He filled the troughs with fresh water and scattered feed across the barn floor, watching as the animals approached eagerly. Each one had its own unique personality, and Jake took pride in knowing them all. There was Bessie, the old cow with a gentle demeanor, Henry, the mischievous goat who always seemed to find trouble, and Clara, the curious pig who had a knack for getting into everything. They depended on him, and that was a responsibility he cherished. As he moved between them, scattering feed and offering gentle pats, Jake's mind wandered. He thought about the challenges of running a farm. Some days felt like an uphill battle. The weather could be unpredictable, and the market was often fickle. But despite the hardships, he wouldn't trade this life for anything. The bond he shared with these creatures was irreplaceable. They relied on him, and in turn, he derived joy and fulfillment from their presence. Just as he was about to check on the horses, something caught his eye through the barn door. A flicker of light danced in the sky, pulling his attention away from the animals. He paused, squinting toward the horizon. At first, he dismissed it as a trick of the early dawn, perhaps the reflection of a distant star. But as he stood there, the lights began to pulse and shift, illuminating the sky in shades of blue and green. Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. This was not something he could easily ignore. Curiosity prickled at him, and he felt a tug of excitement mixed with unease. He had heard the old stories from locals about mysterious lights and sightings of flying objects, but he had never given them much thought. Could this be one of those moments? He shook his head, trying to dispel the notion. Perhaps it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. Yet, the lights grew brighter, swirling in patterns that felt almost deliberate. Jake took a step outside, the cool morning air brushing against his skin. It felt exhilarating, but also unnerving. The barn behind him faded into the background as he focused on the mesmerizing display above. The colors shifted, and he felt as though the lights were alive, beckoning him to come closer. "Maybe I should just head back inside," he muttered to himself, glancing over his shoulder at the animals. But he hesitated. What if this was something extraordinary? What if it held the key to an adventure he had always dreamed of? The thought electrified him, igniting a spark of hope he hadn't felt in a long time. As he stood there, entranced, the lights intensified, and his heart began to race. Was he really witnessing something incredible? He felt a strange connection to those flickering orbs, as if they were reaching out to him, communicating in a language he didn't quite understand. What if today was the day that everything changed? "Come on, Jake, focus," he said to himself, shaking off the thoughts that threatened to spiral into wild fantasies. "You've got animals to feed." But even as he returned to his chores, a part of him was still drawn to the sky, the lights an ever-present distraction. He filled the pig trough, watching as Clara snorted and rooted around, her little tail wagging with excitement. The familiar sounds of the barn, the clucking of chickens, the low moo of cows, provided a comforting backdrop to his thoughts. Yet, the lights in the sky lingered in his mind, refusing to fade into the background noise. Maybe it's just a weather balloon or something, he reasoned, though he didn't quite believe it. The lights danced again, and he found himself glancing back at them, a sense of foreboding creeping in. What if they were a sign? A warning? Or perhaps an invitation? The possibilities raced through his mind, each one more fantastical than the last. As he finished feeding the goats, he could feel his heart quickening. He took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising tide of anxiety. "You're just being silly, Jake," he chastised himself. "Get a grip." But the lights continued to flicker, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were somehow linked to him, to his life on the farm. With the sun slowly rising, casting golden rays across the field, Jake tried to refocus on the tasks at hand. He pushed the strange thoughts aside, instead concentrating on the animals that depended on him. But as he walked back to the barn, the lights in the sky seemed to beckon him, pulling at his curiosity and igniting a sense of adventure he hadn't felt in years. "If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel," he said to himself as if it were a mantra to keep his mind grounded. The thought that someone else might find this moment as fascinating as he did brought a smile to his face. But as he turned back to the barn, a sudden noise startled him. The air around him buzzed with energy, and he instinctively stepped outside once more. The lights were no longer distant, they were descending toward the earth, slowly and deliberately. Jake's heart raced as he stood frozen in place, torn between fear and a deep-seated curiosity. What on earth was happening? The lights continued their descent, illuminating the field in an ethereal glow. His gut churned with anticipation, and he felt a pull toward the unknown. Could this really be happening? Was he about to witness something that would change his life forever? As the glow grew brighter, painting everything in shades of blue and green, Jake felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. What if today was the day that everything changed? The day he stepped outside his routine and into a story worth telling? He could hardly believe it, but the lights were undeniable, and they were coming closer. As the lights in the sky continued their mesmerizing dance, Jake felt an inexplicable pull, an urge to step closer to the field where the brilliant colors flickered and swirled. He was no longer in the familiarity of his barn where the comforting sounds of clucking hens and lowing cows surrounded him. Instead, a new, electrifying energy filled the air, making every hair on his body stand on end. With a mixture of fear and awe, Jake took tentative steps toward the glowing lights, his heart pounding in his chest. The ground beneath his boots felt solid, yet each footfall echoed in his mind, reminding him that this was uncharted territory. What if he was about to witness something extraordinary? His imagination raced with possibilities, each one more exciting than the last. "What if I'm the first human to see something like this?" he murmured to himself, excitement bubbling up inside him. "Maybe I'll have a story worth telling." Suddenly, the lights began to coalesce, forming a distinct shape, a massive, metallic object that hovered silently above the ground. Jake's breath caught in his throat. It was a spaceship, unlike anything he had ever seen, its surface gleaming in the morning light, reflecting hues of blue and green. The sight was both terrifying and exhilarating, and he felt the urge to run and hide battle with his desire to stay and witness whatever was about to unfold. The ship descended slowly, casting an otherworldly glow that illuminated the entire field. Jake's instincts urged him to turn back, to run inside the safety of his barn. But he stood frozen, unable to tear his eyes away from the spectacle before him. "What if they need my help?" he whispered under his breath, trying to rationalize the magnetic draw he felt toward the unknown. As the ship's landing gear touched the ground, a soft thud resonated in the air. Jake took a deep breath, steadying himself. He couldn't let fear dictate his actions. With shaky legs, he stepped forward, curiosity overriding the instinct to flee. Just when he thought he might be able to take another step, the hatch of the spaceship opened with a hiss, revealing a ramp that extended down to the earth below. Jake's heart raced as figures began to emerge from the ship. They were unlike any beings he had ever seen, tall and slender, with smooth, glistening skin that shimmered in the light. Their large, almond-shaped eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. Each one carried an air of otherworldliness, but their demeanor was surprisingly calm. They didn't appear threatening, instead, they seemed just as intrigued by Jake as he was by them. "Okay, Jake, you can do this," he whispered to himself, gripping the wooden railing of the fence as he forced himself to take a step forward. The aliens glanced at one another, communicating silently in a way that felt instinctual rather than verbal. There was an aura of understanding among them, a shared curiosity that made Jake feel less alone, despite their differences. "Hello," he called out, his voice wavering slightly. I'm Jake. I run this farm." The words tumbled out, his desire to connect overpowering his nerves. "What brings you here?" One of the aliens took a step closer to Jake, its eyes narrowing as if assessing him. It raised a slender arm, pointing toward the animals in the barn behind him. A rush of recognition flickered in Jake's mind. They were here for the animals. His heart swelled with pride and protectiveness. "Do you want to see them?" he asked, feeling a strange sense of camaraderie while also battling an undertone of uncertainty. He hesitated but felt compelled to invite them in. "I can show you around. Just, don't be alarmed. They might not be used to seeing, well, you." The aliens exchanged glances again, and without a word, they began to move closer, following Jake toward the barn. He led the way, glancing back to gauge their reactions. They observed everything with wide eyes, their expressions a mix of wonder and fascination. As they approached the barn, Jake opened the door and stepped inside, the familiar smells of hay and feed washing over him. The cows mooed in greeting, and the chickens clucked, seemingly unbothered by the strange newcomers. "This here is Clara, my prize pig," he said, gesturing toward the hefty pink creature who was snuffling around the trough. "And those cows are Betsy and Daisy. They're a bit shy." To his surprise, the alien stepped forward, kneeling down to get a closer look at Clara. They extended their hands, their fingers long and delicate, hovering just above the pig without touching her. Jake watched as Clara sniffed at the aliens, her curiosity piqued. "See? Just like you," he chuckled nervously. "They're all about the food." The aliens responded with what Jake could only describe as admiration. Their head tilts and soft hums seemed to convey excitement. It struck him then that, despite their strange appearance, they were genuinely interested in these creatures that he had come to know so well. "If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel," he said, a fleeting thought as he reveled in the moment. With each passing minute, Jake found himself relaxing more. The aliens were not here to harm him or his animals, they were curious observers, eager to learn about the world from a perspective they had never experienced. As he continued the tour, introducing each animal with stories of their quirks and personalities, Jake felt an unexpected bond forming between them. He could see the wonder in the aliens' eyes as they interacted with the animals. Their initial apprehension faded, replaced by a sense of friendship that was developing rapidly. Jake began to feel more at ease, as if the barriers between their worlds were slowly dissolving. By the time they reached the goats, Jake had almost forgotten the fear that had gripped him when the aliens first arrived. He was captivated by their reactions, their fascination with the way he cared for his animals. It was a moment of pure connection, one that transcended language and culture. As he watched the aliens crouch down to pet one of the goats, Jake realized that this encounter was not merely about the animals, it was about understanding, about bridging gaps that seemed insurmountable just moments before. "I never expected my morning to go like this," he thought, a smile breaking across his face. The aliens glanced back at him, their expressions a mixture of joy and curiosity, and in that moment, Jake knew that this was just the beginning of an extraordinary journey. Jake took a deep breath, fighting the nervous energy swirling in his stomach. The aliens, who had identified themselves as visitors from a distant planet, were now standing before him, their curious eyes fixated on the barn filled with his beloved animals. The air was thick with anticipation, and he could hardly believe what was happening. Just moments ago, he had been feeding his animals and now, he was about to introduce them to beings from another world. "All right, let's do this," he muttered to himself, stepping forward with an inviting gesture. "Just follow me. I think you'll love what you see." As he motioned for them to enter the barn, he felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. What if they didn't like the animals? What if they misunderstood the bond he shared with them? The door creaked open, revealing the familiar sights and sounds of his farm. The smell of fresh hay mingled with the earthy scent of the animals, creating a comforting aroma that always made Jake feel at home. He stepped inside, glancing back to see the aliens cautiously following him. They seemed to move in sync, their slender forms gliding effortlessly through the entrance. "Welcome to my world," he announced, gesturing dramatically as if he were a tour guide rather than a simple farmer. This is Clara, my prize pig. She's a bit of a diva, but she's sweet once you get to know her. Jake watched as the aliens leaned in closer, their eyes widening with fascination. Clara, oblivious to the audience, continued her snuffling around the trough, with a few playful grunts. One of the aliens pointed at Clara, and Jake interpreted the gesture as curiosity. Yes, she's quite the character. Pigs are very intelligent, you know. They can learn tricks and even recognize their names. He felt a swell of pride as he saw the aliens exchange glances, their expressions indicating they were intrigued by his words. Jake continued the tour, leading them deeper into the barn. And over here are Betsy and Daisy, he said, motioning toward the two cows munching on their breakfast. They're best friends and love to hang out together. Just like people, animals have relationships too. The aliens observed intently, their heads tilting slightly as they absorbed every detail. As he spoke, he couldn't help but feel a connection growing between him and these extraterrestrial visitors. They were not here to conquer or destroy, they were here to learn, much like he was. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, he said, almost absent-mindedly, caught up in the moment. He moved on to the chickens, whose lively clucking filled the barn. These girls are the best egg producers. Each one has her own personality. Some are feisty, and others are more laid back. Jake chuckled as he watched the aliens observe the flock, their expressions a mix of amusement and wonder. Do you have something similar on your planet? He asked, genuinely curious. The aliens exchanged quick glances, and one stepped forward, gesturing with its hands, mimicking the movements of the chickens. Jake felt a jolt of understanding. They were trying to communicate their own experiences, comparing notes on life forms from different worlds. As they meandered through the barn, Jake introduced more animals, each with its own story. This is Max, my loyal dog. He's always up for a game of fetch. Max, sensing new visitors, bounded over, barking excitedly. The aliens observed him with wide eyes, their expressions shifting to one of delight. Jake couldn't help but laugh. He's a bit much, but he's got a heart of gold. The aliens seemed to understand that affection, their own forms relaxing as they watched the dog interact with Jake. The bond Jake had with his animals was palpable, and he could sense that the aliens were beginning to grasp the significance of these relationships. He moved to the goats next. These are my troublemakers, he said with a smile. They're always getting into things they shouldn't. The goats bleated and butted heads playfully, and Jake watched the aliens observe them with genuine interest. He felt a warmth spread through him, realizing that this moment was bridging a gap he never thought possible. As he continued to explain the importance of each animal, the aliens began to mimic his gestures. They pointed, clapped, and even bent down to get a better look at the goats. Jake felt a rush of joy seeing them engage so deeply. It was as if they were not just watching, they were becoming part of this world, even if only for a little while. Animals teach us so much, Jake said, feeling inspired. They teach us about care, compassion, and responsibility. Every day, I learn something new from them. He paused, his heart swelling with emotion. It's my job to look after them, and I take that seriously. One of the aliens gestured towards a nearby hay bale, mimicking the way Jake had been feeding the animals earlier. Jake raised an eyebrow, intrigued by their imitation. You want to try? He asked, feeling a surge of excitement. All right, let's do it. He retrieved some feed and showed the aliens how to scatter it for the chickens. One alien hesitantly took a handful, following Jake's lead, while the others watched closely. Just like that. They'll come right to you. Jake's heart raced as he saw the chickens flock toward the aliens, clucking in delight as they pecked at the feed. Laughter erupted in the barn as the aliens tried to scatter the feed, showing their own clumsy but endearing attempts. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and camaraderie, transcending any differences in language or origin. Jake realized that this experience was about more than just showing the aliens around, it was about sharing a piece of his life. The tour continued, and as Jake introduced each animal, he noticed the aliens were beginning to respond with enthusiasm. They pointed at the animals, mimicking their sounds, and Jake found himself laughing along with them. The initial tension that had gripped him faded away, replaced by a growing sense of friendship. See? Animals bring people together, he said, gesturing to the animals that were now comfortably mingling with their curious guests. I know it might seem strange to you, but this is my life. I love these creatures. Jake felt a sense of pride swell within him, realizing that he was not just a farmer, he was a caretaker, a protector, and now, a bridge between worlds. The aliens watched him with a mix of admiration and curiosity, and he felt the connection solidify with every passing moment. As the barn tour came to an end, Jake looked around at the gathering of creatures and extraterrestrial beings. It was a sight he never thought he would witness, a moment that encapsulated the beauty of understanding and acceptance. I never imagined I'd be showing my farm to aliens, he chuckled softly, feeling a warmth spread through the air. But I'm glad I could share it with you. In that moment, Jake knew that this encounter was just the beginning of something extraordinary. Their worlds may be different, but the love for animals and the lessons they taught transcended the boundaries of space. As Jake continued to bond with the aliens, their curious glances and eager gestures revealed a growing interest in everything around them. The morning sun streamed through the barn's wooden slats, casting beams of light that danced across the floor, illuminating the different animals that called this place home. Jake felt a sense of pride swell within him. This was his sanctuary, a world he had dedicated himself to, and now he was sharing it with beings from another planet. So, tell me more about where you come from, Jake asked, glancing at Zektar, who seemed to be the leader of the group. The alien's large eyes sparkled with intelligence as it gestured toward the sky, its fingers moving in a flowing motion that reminded Jake of how he might describe the vastness of a field. Through their telepathic communication, Zektar shared images and feelings that enveloped Jake like a warm blanket. He saw lush landscapes filled with strange plants and creatures, vibrant colors that defied description, and a community that thrived on knowledge and exploration. The alien's home planet was a place of discovery, where learning was revered, and every species was considered a vital part of the ecosystem. That sounds incredible, Jake replied, feeling a thrill run through him. Here on Earth, we have a deep connection with our animals. They depend on us, and in return, they teach us about compassion and responsibility. The aliens processed his words, their expressions shifting as they absorbed the concept. Jake moved closer to a set of cows, gently patting one of their soft noses. These are my dairy cows. They provide us with milk, and in turn, we take care of them. The animals mooed softly, and Jake could see the aliens leaning forward, their eyes wide with wonder. Jake continued, it's a relationship built on trust. They need us, but we also need them to teach us about patience and kindness. He could feel the connection between all living beings, a thread that wove through the fabric of life, binding them together. Zektar made a series of gestures, mimicking Jake's actions as it reached out to stroke the cow's nose. The alien's touch was gentle, and Jake watched as the cow leaned into the contact, seemingly enjoying the interaction. The sight filled Jake with joy. They were beginning to understand the bond between human and animal. An alien beside Zektar copied the gesture, attempting to feed the cow a handful of hay. Jake chuckled, delighted at their eagerness to engage. Just like that. Make sure to be gentle. The aliens nodded, their enthusiasm infectious. Feeling a surge of happiness, Jake led them to the chickens next. These little ones are always a joy. They can be quite friendly if you let them. He demonstrated how to scatter the feed, and to his delight, the aliens followed suit. This time, as they tossed the grains, they laughed an alien sound that was oddly harmonious and filled with genuine joy. That's right. They love pecking around and exploring, Jake encouraged. He felt a warmth in his chest as he watched the aliens interact with the chickens. They observed the birds' behavior, their curiosity making the moment even more special. Jake took a step back, allowing the aliens to engage fully. It was fascinating to see their reactions. Each cluck and flutter of wings seemed to ignite a spark of excitement. As the aliens grew more confident, Jake felt himself relax, their laughter creating an atmosphere that felt almost familial. So, what do you think of our way of life? He asked, eager to hear their thoughts. Zektar paused, its expression turning contemplative. Through their shared mental connection, Jake sensed a mixture of admiration and confusion. They were processing everything, trying to reconcile their understanding of life with what they were experiencing. It's different, isn't it? Jake continued, noting how Zektar nodded. We have our challenges, but there's beauty in the simplicity of it all. Every day is a new adventure with these animals, they have their quirks and personalities. Just then, one of the goats butted against Zektar's leg, causing the alien to stumble back slightly. Laughter erupted from the group, the sound echoing through the barn. "That's Billy," Jake said with a grin. "He's a real character. Always trying to get attention." Zektar extended a hand, cautiously reaching out to pet Billy, and the goat responded with a contented bleat. The connection was undeniable, laughter flowed freely, bridging the gap of understanding between them. It was as if the animals had become the universal language, speaking to both human and alien alike. In a moment of reflection, Jake found himself sharing more about his life. "I grew up on this farm, and it's been my dream to take care of it and the animals. It's not just about work, it's about love and commitment." He noticed that the aliens were absorbing his words, their expressions softening as they processed the emotional weight behind them. Zektar gestured toward the barn doors, and Jake understood the alien wanted to see more. "Of course. Let's head outside. The fields are beautiful this time of year." As they stepped out into the bright sunlight, the vastness of the farmland opened up before them. The rolling hills were dotted with patches of wildflowers, and the sky was a brilliant blue. "This is where the magic happens," Jake said, gesturing over the landscape. "Every season brings something new." The aliens seemed in awe, their heads tilting back to take in the expanse. Zektar pointed to the distant horizon, an expression of wonder etched across its face. Jake smiled, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This was more than just a tour, it was an exchange of ideas, a sharing of lives. "Every day, I learn something from nature. It teaches us about resilience and balance," Jake explained, his passion evident. "And I hope you can take some of this back with you. Maybe it could help your people understand our ways better." The aliens nodded, their minds racing with the possibilities. Jake could sense their eagerness to learn, to take back what they had experienced. He felt a thrill of excitement, they were not just observers anymore. They were participants in a shared journey of discovery and understanding. As they walked along the edge of the field, Jake paused to pick a few wildflowers. "These are my favorites," he said, presenting the vibrant blooms to the aliens. Their eyes widened in delight. They symbolize the beauty of life and the importance of nurturing growth. Jake felt a sense of satisfaction as he watched the aliens examine the flowers, their delicate fingers brushing against the petals. He could feel the bond between them deepening, and with it, the understanding that transcended language. In that moment, Jake realized they were all connected, humans, aliens, and animals alike, each playing a role in the intricate web of life. "If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel," Jake said, a smile on his face as he turned back to the aliens. Their laughter filled the air, a beautiful sound that resonated with the essence of connection. This day was turning into something unforgettable, a moment in time where differences melted away, leaving only friendship and understanding. As the moments of laughter and shared stories unfolded, Jake felt a warm glow in his chest. Their connection deepened, and he found himself forgetting the initial shock of their arrival. The aliens, with their curious nature and sincere interest, began to feel less like visitors and more like friends. But just as the camaraderie flourished, an unexpected situation arose, throwing a shadow over the joyful atmosphere. While Jake was explaining the care routine for the goats, he noticed one of the younger sheep, a fluffy little creature named Daisy, lagging behind the rest. She seemed sluggish, her usual energetic bleating replaced by a quiet, stunted sound. Jake's heart sank, he was all too familiar with the signs of an animal in distress. "Hey, what's wrong with Daisy?" he muttered, moving closer to the little sheep. Panic began to creep into his mind as he gently touched her side, feeling an unusual warmth radiating through her wool. The aliens, noticing Jake's sudden shift in demeanor, instinctively gathered around, their large, expressive eyes filled with concern. Zektar stepped forward, tilting its head as it assessed the situation. Jake could see the alien's brow furrowed in concentration, and he wondered what they could possibly understand about farm animals. "She doesn't look well," Jake admitted, his voice tight with worry. "I'm not sure what's wrong, but I need to do something fast." Zektar raised a hand, a gesture that suggested calmness. Through their mental connection, Jake felt a wave of assurance wash over him, as if the alien was saying everything would be alright. Still, Jake's heart raced as he felt utterly helpless. I've never seen her like this before. I may need to call the vet. Before Jake could reach for his phone, Zektar took a step closer, its eyes glowing softly. Allow us to help, it communicated through thought, and Jake was taken aback. Could these aliens truly assist him in a situation like this? The idea seemed both absurd and hopeful. But he had no time to waste. If they were willing to help, perhaps he should let them. Okay, Jake replied, his voice shaky but resolute. What do you need from me? The aliens exchanged glances, and then Zektar extended its hands toward Daisy. Jake was filled with a mix of anxiety and curiosity as he watched the alien's fingers glow with a faint luminescence. What are you doing? He asked, stepping back slightly, unsure of what to expect. Zektar's voice filled his mind again. We have knowledge of healing techniques from our planet. Trust us. Jake hesitated, but he could see Daisy's condition worsening, her eyes dimming. He took a deep breath and nodded, resolving to trust these beings who had shown nothing but kindness since their arrival. As Zektar began to move its hands just above Daisy's body, the light intensified, casting a gentle glow over the sheep. Jake watched in bewilderment as the alien's movements seemed to create a ripple in the air, almost like a soft breeze flowing through the barn. The other aliens crowded closer, their eyes fixed on Daisy, clearly invested in the outcome. What are you doing exactly? Jake asked, still feeling a bit skeptical. Zektar paused, maintaining the glowing energy above Daisy. We are diagnosing her condition. Please remain calm. Jake felt a sense of intrigue mingled with his anxiety as he observed the alien's methods. He had spent years learning how to care for his animals, yet here he was, relying on a being from another world. The tension in the air thickened as Zektar's expression shifted, a mixture of concern and determination. She is suffering from a parasitic infection, it communicated, and Jake felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had encountered various illnesses but had never dealt with anything like this. It will require immediate treatment, but the process may seem unconventional to you. Jake's heart raced. What do I need to do? He urged. The urgency in his voice was palpable, and he knew he had to act quickly for Daisy's sake. The aliens shared a silent exchange before Zektar continued, We will administer the treatment. It will be different, but trust in our technology. With no other options available, Jake nodded, his hands clenching into fists. All right, let's do it. He stepped back and watched as Zektar started to manipulate the light, now swirling around Daisy in vibrant patterns. The sight was mesmerizing, and for a moment, Jake felt as if he were witnessing something magical. The other aliens began to assist, their hands moving in harmony with Zektar, creating a symphony of light and energy. Jake could hear the soft hum of their voices, resonating in a frequency he couldn't quite understand but somehow soothed him. As they worked, Daisy started to respond, her breathing becoming steadier, and her eyes brightening with life. What's happening to her? Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zektar turned to him, its expression softening. The treatment is working. She is strong. We will help her fight this. Jake felt a surge of hope swell within him, but he was still torn. Would this alien method truly be effective? As they continued, Jake's worry began to ease. The glow surrounding Daisy intensified, and soon the sheep started to bleat softly, a sound that filled Jake with relief. You're going to be okay, Daisy, he whispered, willing her to pull through. The aliens seemed to share in his relief, their body language suggesting a mix of anticipation and encouragement. After what felt like an eternity, Zektar stepped back, allowing the glow to fade gradually. It is done, it announced, and Jake rushed forward, kneeling beside Daisy. The little sheep was standing now, albeit shakily, her eyes bright and alert. You did it, Jake breathed, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. You really did it. The aliens exchanged pleased glances, and Jake couldn't help but smile. I didn't think you could actually help. I mean, this is incredible. He felt a warmth bloom in his chest, a sense of camaraderie growing between them. Thank you. Zektar inclined its head, an expression of humility in its demeanor. We are glad to assist. Your bond with these creatures is strong. It is a beautiful thing to witness. Jake nodded, still in awe. I guess we all have our strengths. You have technology one can't even begin to understand, and I have my experience with animals. The moment hung in the air, thick with newfound respect. He realized that they weren't so different after all, both were driven by a desire to nurture and protect. As Daisy began to trot around the barn, Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. It was a simple act, but it carried profound weight. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Jake called out, his heart full. Their laughter blended into the sunlight streaming through the barn doors, a beautiful reminder that even in the midst of chaos, compassion and connection could shine through. In that moment, Jake realized that his life on the farm would never be the same. The aliens had opened a door to possibilities he had never imagined, and he was eager to explore them further. The day was just beginning, and he felt a spark of excitement for what lay ahead. The anticipation hung in the barn like the morning mist, a blend of hope and fear swirling together. Jake watched as Zektar and the other aliens began their work, their movements fluid and purposeful. It was surreal to think that beings from another world were here, right in his barn, working to save his beloved sheep. Daisy lay on the straw, her breathing shallow but steady, and he took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. Is she going to be okay? He asked softly, the worry evident in his voice. Zektar nodded, its large eyes filled with a calmness Jake desperately wanted to mirror. We will do everything we can. Trust in our methods. As the aliens arranged their equipment, Jake felt a twinge of doubt creep in. Would their strange technology really work? He had always relied on traditional methods, his hands-on experience with the animals, and now he was about to place Daisy's life in the hands of beings he had only just met. But there was no time to think too long. Daisy needed him now. The aliens gathered around her, and Jake took a step closer, peering at the unfamiliar instruments in their hands. They sparkled and glowed with an otherworldly light, casting flickers of color across the barn's wooden walls. A soft hum resonated from their devices, a sound that filled the space and made Jake's heart race. He felt a mix of fear and wonder. Would this work? Zektar, sensing his apprehension, turned towards him and spoke. We will use a combination of light and sound frequencies to rebalance her energy. As it spoke, Jake noticed how its gestures seemed to convey as much meaning as the words. There was a beauty in their communication, a silent promise that they would do everything they could to help. All right, Jake replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Just tell me what to do. Despite his nerves, he was ready to do anything for Daisy. Zektar extended a slender limb towards him, gesturing for him to position himself closer. You must remain calm. Your energy affects hers. Taking a deep breath, Jake nodded, centering himself. He reached out to touch Daisy's head gently, feeling the warmth of her body against his palm. You're going to be okay, girl, he whispered, hoping his words would reach her. The aliens began their work, and Jake felt a strange energy flow through the air. Zektar manipulated the devices with precision, and beams of light enveloped Daisy. It was mesmerizing, the way the colors danced around her, swirling and flickering as if they had a life of their own. Jake could feel the tension in his shoulders start to ease. Look, Zektar said, pointing towards Daisy. She is responding. Jake watched as Daisy's eyes flickered open, and for a moment, he felt a rush of hope. But then her breathing became erratic again, and his heart sank. Is something wrong? He asked, panic creeping back in. Zektar held up a hand, calming him. No. This is part of the process. We are helping her to fight. As the aliens continued their work, Jake tried to focus on the rhythm of Daisy's breaths, the soft sounds of her bleeding filling the air. The barn that had once seemed so familiar now felt like a place caught between two worlds. The alien's presence transformed it into a scene straight out of a science fiction movie, where hope and fear intertwined. The glow intensified, enveloping Daisy in a cocoon of light. Zektar and the others worked in harmony, their movements synchronized in a way that was almost hypnotic. It was clear they had done this before, and Jake found himself drawn into their confidence. Keep talking to her, Zektar encouraged, and Jake nodded. You're strong, Daisy. Fight this. We're all here for you. He felt a surge of emotion, and as he spoke, he saw the aliens react to his words, their expressions a mix of curiosity and empathy. They were learning, just as he was. Minutes seemed to stretch into hours as Jake watched, heart racing, as the aliens used their technology to diagnose and treat Daisy. The process was unlike anything he had ever seen. He could see the energy flowing from the devices into Daisy, and he marveled at the power they wielded. "What is happening to her?" Jake whispered, feeling both awed and terrified. Zektar met his gaze, its eyes reflecting the light around them. "We are realigning her vital energies. It is a delicate balance, but she has the strength to pull through." The words hung in the air, a fragile promise. Jake wanted to believe it, needed to. Just then, Daisy let out a weak bleat, and Jake's heart leapt. "That's it, girl. You can do it." Suddenly, Daisy's body shuddered, and the glow around her flickered. Panic gripped Jake once more. "What's wrong? Is she?" Zektar's voice cut through his worries. "No, she is fighting." "This is a good sign." Jake nodded, trying to absorb the alien's words. He focused on Daisy, willing her to hold on. "You've got this, Daisy. Just a little longer." With each passing second, the energy around them shifted, and Jake felt a sense of unity. It was like they were all part of the same struggle. The aliens and Jake were united in their desire to save this creature, and for the first time, he felt a bond with them that transcended language and species. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the glow began to dim, and Zektar stepped back. "It is done," it announced, and Jake rushed forward, heart pounding in his chest. Daisy was standing now, albeit unsteadily, her eyes bright and alert. "You did it," he exclaimed, tears of relief welling up in his eyes. "You really did it." The aliens shared glances of joy, their expressions mirroring his own. Zektar's demeanor softened, and it replied, "We are glad to assist. Your bond with these creatures is strong. It is a beautiful thing to witness." Jake felt a swell of pride. "I guess we all have our strengths. You have technology one can't even begin to understand, and I have my experience with animals." Daisy took a few wobbly steps towards him, and Jake knelt down to embrace her gently. "You're going to be okay now," he whispered, his heart full. He turned back to Zektar and the others, gratitude coursing through him. "Thank you all so much." As they stood together in the barn, the sun began to rise outside, casting golden rays through the cracks in the wooden walls. Jake felt a rush of excitement about the future. "If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel," he called out, his voice filled with hope. There was so much more to explore, so many paths to take now that he had met these extraordinary beings. With Daisy recovering and the aliens beside him, Jake realized that this was only the beginning. The day was full of possibilities, and he couldn't wait to see where this newfound friendship would lead. As the treatment progressed, the atmosphere in the barn shifted. Jake watched with bated breath as the aliens utilized their strange devices on Daisy, who was still recovering from her illness. The first signs of improvement were subtle, but to Jake, they felt monumental. Daisy's bleats, once weak and sporadic, began to grow stronger, filled with the essence of life and resilience. It was a sound he had longed to hear and one that seemed to resonate with hope. Zektar, the leader of the aliens, stood close, its gaze focused on the glowing device hovering just above Daisy. "Her vital signs are stabilizing." "She will be all right," Zektar assured him, its voice calm and steady. Jake could hardly believe the words. It felt surreal to witness such advanced technology working in tandem with his heartfelt care for the animals he cherished so much. "Really?" Jake asked, disbelief lacing his voice. "I mean, I've never seen anything like this before." Zektar nodded, its eyes glimmering with what Jake interpreted as understanding. "You humans have a unique bond with your animals. It is something we admire. Your compassion is a powerful force." The alien's words struck a chord within Jake, making his chest swell with pride. He had always known how important the connection with the animals was, but hearing it acknowledged by these extraterrestrial beings made it even more profound. As the light from the device flickered gently, Jake noticed how Daisy seemed to respond to his presence. He knelt beside her, stroking her fur, whispering words of encouragement. "You're doing so well, Daisy. Just a little longer. We're all here for you." Although he felt a bit silly talking to her, it felt right. His heart swelled with hope as he saw her begin to nuzzle him, a sign of recognition and trust. The aliens worked seamlessly around him, their movements precise and deliberate. Jake couldn't help but be captivated by their grace. He felt a mixture of awe and humility, realizing that they were sharing this moment with him. It was a rare glimpse into a world beyond his understanding, and yet, here they were, united in a common goal, saving Daisy. Suddenly, Daisy let out a more robust bleat, and Jake felt a rush of exhilaration. "That's it, girl. You're coming back to us," he exclaimed, unable to contain his excitement. The aliens paused for a moment, their attention shifting to Jake as they absorbed the warmth of his encouragement. "It is essential to maintain her spirit," Zektar noted. "Your emotional energy aids in her recovery." Jake felt grateful and empowered by their words. He focused all his thoughts on Daisy, channeling every ounce of love and strength he could muster. The barn felt alive, and the atmosphere pulsed with a sense of shared determination. It was as if they were all connected in this fight for Daisy's well-being. Minutes passed like hours, but finally, the alien device began to hum softly, its light brightening in response to Daisy's renewed strength. Jake held his breath, watching as the energy enveloped her in a radiant glow. He felt a thrill of anticipation rising within him, igniting a spark of hope that surged through his veins. "Look," he said, pointing at Daisy. "She's standing." The aliens turned their gazes toward Daisy, their expressions a mix of wonder and delight. Indeed, Daisy was slowly rising to her feet, wobbling slightly but managing to stay upright. Jake couldn't help but laugh with joy, overwhelmed by the sight. "You did it! We did it," he cheered, feeling a sense of camaraderie swell within him and the aliens. Zektar stepped closer, a sense of pride emanating from its being. "Your bond with her is strong. She will carry this strength forward." Jake felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you for helping her. I never thought I'd see something like this in my life." "As we have learned from you, we too are learning about the importance of care and compassion," Zektar replied. "Your methods, though primitive to us, hold great value." A wave of emotion washed over Jake as he realized this was more than just an event, it was the beginning of a profound connection between species. He had always thought of himself as just a simple farmer, but now he realized that his experiences and insights were invaluable. "If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel," he said with a grin, the excitement bubbling over as he thought about how this adventure was transforming his life. As Daisy took a few tentative steps towards him, Jake felt a rush of pride. He knelt down and wrapped his arms around her neck, holding her close. "You're going to be okay now, girl," he whispered, feeling tears of relief prick at his eyes. Daisy nuzzled deeper into his embrace, and in that moment, it felt like they were all family, human and alien alike. The aliens observed this exchange with curiosity, and Jake could see their minds processing the emotional display before them. He wondered what they thought of such affection and warmth. "You know," Jake began, breaking the silence, "I never imagined I'd be here today, sharing this moment with you guys. I'm just a farmer. I thought my world was small, but now it feels like it's just getting started." "This experience is a reminder that connections can transcend boundaries," Zektar replied, its voice echoing softly in the barn. "It is a lesson for all of us." Jake smiled, feeling the weight of those words. It was true, they were all learning from each other. The bond between him and these aliens was growing deeper, and he felt a sense of purpose rekindled within him. There was so much more to explore, not just about farming and caring for animals, but about life itself. As the sun began to rise outside, casting a warm glow through the barn's wooden slats, Jake felt a wave of hope wash over him. The day was brightening, not just in the sky but in his heart as well. He glanced at Daisy, who now stood firm beside him, and then back at Zektar and the others. He realized that they were all in this together, facing the unknown with courage and compassion. And with that thought, Jake couldn't help but feel excitement bubbling within him about what lay ahead. The universe had opened up in ways he never imagined, and he was eager to see where this journey would lead. "Thank you for everything," he said sincerely, looking at the aliens. I can't wait to see what we can accomplish together. As the atmosphere in the barn settled after Daisy's miraculous recovery, the mood shifted from one of crisis to one of curiosity and excitement. Jake stood beside the glowing aliens, feeling a sense of camaraderie that he never thought possible. He glanced at Daisy, who seemed more vibrant than ever, and then back to Zektar and his companions. The connection they had forged through their shared experience was palpable, brimming with potential for future collaboration. Zektar seemed to sense Jake's contemplation. "Your approach to caring for your animals is fascinating," he remarked, tilting his head in a way that signified genuine interest. "Tell us more about your farming methods." Jake chuckled softly, the initial excitement of their encounter now mingling with a newfound confidence. "Well, it's not exactly high-tech," he admitted. "I guess it's just about consistency and a little bit of love. Every morning, I wake up before dawn to feed the animals. They rely on me." "Rely?" Zektar echoed, intrigued. "You mean they depend on you for sustenance, for care?" "Exactly," Jake replied. "Each animal has its own needs, and I've learned to identify what each one prefers. For instance, Daisy here loves the fresh hay I grow just for her." The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of admiration and confusion. "This is a unique form of symbiosis," Zektar commented. "On my planet, we focus on efficiency and technology. We do not have such emotional bonds with our livestock." Jake nodded, understanding that this was a cultural chasm that needed bridging. "It's more than just feeding them. I spend time with them. I talk to them. It's about trust. They know I'm here to take care of them, and I know they provide companionship and even joy in return." "Joy?" Zektar repeated, his brow furrowing slightly. "What is this emotion? Is it vital for your species?" Jake smiled, realizing how much there was to share. "It's essential. It motivates us, drives us to do better. Without joy, life can feel pretty empty. That's why I love what I do." As they spoke, Jake could see the aliens processing this information. He sensed an opportunity. "If you're interested, I'd love to show you how I run the farm. You could learn a lot about Earth's ecosystems, and in return, maybe you can teach me some of your advanced techniques." Zektar's eyes widened at the suggestion. This exchange could be mutually beneficial. "We have much to learn from your methods, and perhaps you will gain insights that could enhance your practices." Jake felt a rush of excitement at the prospect. "Absolutely. I mean, what if we could create a new way of farming that combines your technology with my experience? We could revolutionize agriculture." The aliens seemed to consider this seriously. "You propose a collaboration," Zektar stated, his voice steady and calm. "This is a significant leap forward for both our species. We must proceed with caution, as our methods are vastly different." "Sure, that makes sense," Jake replied, nodding. "But I think that's what makes this so exciting. We can learn from each other's strengths." With the conversation flowing, Jake felt a sense of hope blossoming within him. He was no longer just a simple farmer operating in isolation, he was part of something larger, something extraordinary. "If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel," he added playfully, catching the aliens off guard with his lightheartedness. Zektar's expression shifted to one of amusement. "This subscribing is a ritual of your kind?" Jake laughed. "Sort of. It means you want to keep up with what's happening. It's like saying, I want to be part of this journey with you." The aliens nodded, clearly intrigued. "We shall explore this concept further. It may help us understand your species better." As the sun continued to rise outside, casting warm rays through the barn, Jake felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He was grateful for Daisy's recovery, for the unexpected friendship that was blossoming with the aliens, and for the chance to redefine his life's purpose. "Let's start with the basics," Jake suggested, feeling energized. "We can begin by looking at the crops I grow and understanding their importance in our ecosystem. Then we can see how the animals fit into that system. It's all interconnected." The aliens nodded, their interest piqued. "Show us," Jake Williams. "We are eager to learn." With that, Jake led the way out of the barn, his heart pounding with excitement. As they walked through the fields, he explained the different crops he cultivated, his voice filled with passion. "These are tomatoes," he said, pointing to the lush green plants. "They require just the right amount of sunlight and water. If we can optimize irrigation techniques, that would help tremendously." As they moved to the next section, he pointed to a patch of corn swaying gently in the breeze. "Corn is a staple here. It's versatile and feeds both humans and animals. But it can attract pests, so pest control is vital." Zektar and the others listened intently, their large eyes reflecting curiosity. "What do you do about these pests?" one of the aliens asked. Jake explained how he used natural predators and organic solutions to manage pest populations instead of relying heavily on chemicals. "It's about keeping the balance," he emphasized. "Every creature has its place in the ecosystem." The aliens observed closely, taking notes and exchanging glances. Jake felt a surge of pride. He was sharing his knowledge, and they were absorbing it like sponges. It was clear that they respected his expertise, and in that moment, he felt more than just a farmer, he was a teacher, a bridge between worlds. After a while, they reached the pasture where the animals grazed. Jake introduced the aliens to the sheep, the goats, and the chickens, explaining how each species contributed to the farm. These sheep provide wool, while the goats help control weeds. The chickens are an excellent source of eggs and help with pest control. Zektar stepped closer to a curious goat that had approached them, kneeling down to observe it. "They are quite social beings," the alien noted, reaching out to gently touch the goat's head. The creature nuzzled against Zektar, prompting a smile from the alien. Jake couldn't help but chuckle. "They can be friendly, just like any other animal. It's all about building trust." As the morning unfolded, Jake shared anecdotes about each animal, stories from his life on the farm, and the lessons he had learned. The aliens responded with enthusiasm, sharing snippets of their own culture and how they raised their livestock, albeit in a vastly different manner. Through this exchange, Jake felt a connection forming, one that transcended species and cultures. With every story and every lesson shared, they were not just learning from each other, they were building a friendship grounded in mutual respect and understanding. After hours of exploration, Jake led the aliens back to the barn, feeling invigorated. "I'm so glad we did this today. I can't wait to see how we can combine our knowledge." "Indeed," Zektar replied, a hint of excitement in his voice. "The possibilities are endless. We shall continue this exchange. Your methods, though primitive in our eyes, hold great value." Jake felt a wave of validation wash over him. He had spent years doubting the importance of his work, but now, standing beside these extraordinary beings, he realized that his simple life as a farmer was anything but ordinary. Together, they could create something remarkable that would change not just their lives but potentially the future of agriculture on Earth. As he glanced out at the fields, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was ready to dive into this new chapter, and with the aliens by his side, he knew they would achieve great things together. As the collaboration continued to unfold, Jake and the aliens dove deeper into the intricacies of farming. Excitement buzzed in the air as they gathered in the barn, armed with tools and a shared vision. The morning sun streamed through the open doors, illuminating the space and casting long shadows on the wooden floor. Jake looked around, seeing not just the animals he cared for but also a group of eager learners ready to absorb everything he had to offer. "Let's start with the basics of crop rotation," Jake suggested, his voice filled with enthusiasm. "It's one of the most important principles of sustainable farming." He could see the aliens leaning in, their large eyes reflecting their curiosity. "What is crop rotation?" Zektar asked, tilting his head slightly. A gesture that, to Jake, conveyed genuine interest. Jake took a deep breath, feeling a wave of pride swell within him. "It's about alternating the types of crops grown in a particular field from season to season. For instance, after harvesting corn, I might plant legumes like beans or peas. They help replenish nitrogen in the soil, which is crucial for future crops." As he spoke, he gestured towards a few rows of corn growing tall outside. This method not only increases yield but also keeps the soil healthy. The aliens exchanged looks, their expressions a mixture of confusion and intrigue. "Why do you not just plant the same crop repeatedly?" one of them inquired, their voice laced with puzzlement. Jake chuckled, appreciating the question. If you plant the same crop year after year, you deplete the soil of specific nutrients, leading to poor crop health and lower yields over time. It's like exhausting a resource without giving it a chance to recover. Nodding in understanding, the aliens began to take notes, their devices glowing softly as they recorded Jake's words. This method is quite logical, Zektar remarked, his tone approving. We have similar practices on our planet, but the specifics differ. Jake felt a surge of connection. Here they were, two beings from vastly different worlds, exchanging farming knowledge. Why don't we try a hands-on approach, he proposed. How about you help me with the next planting? The aliens' faces lit up with excitement, and Jake could sense their eagerness to get their hands dirty. In the fields, the atmosphere buzzed with energy. Jake demonstrated how to prepare the soil, loosening it with a shovel before the aliens took turns trying it themselves. Their movements were awkward at first, but with each attempt, they grew more confident. Watching them struggle, Jake couldn't help but smile. It's all about the rhythm, he encouraged. Feel the soil, let it guide you. Rhythm, Zektar repeated, furrowing his brow as he concentrated on his task. We have a different understanding of rhythm, but this feels similar. As they worked side by side, Jake shared stories about the various crops he grew, from colorful bell peppers to hardy squash. Each one has its own unique needs, he explained, and getting to know them is essential. It's like forming a friendship, understanding what each one requires to thrive. The aliens listened intently, their expressions a blend of fascination and contemplation. Friendship, one of them echoed, glancing at Jake. Is it not a bond based on understanding? Exactly. Jake replied, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Just like how I've come to understand how each of you works. It's about empathy, respect, and finding common ground. They moved on to the compost pile next, where Jake taught the aliens about the importance of recycling organic material. This, he gestured to the pile, is nature's way of replenishing the earth. We use food scraps, yard waste, anything that can break down and enrich the soil. The aliens were particularly intrigued by the concept of waste recycling. On our planet, we tend to utilize resources until they are completely exhausted, Zektar said, frowning slightly. We do not have this concept of returning to the earth what we take from it. That's something I think we can work together on, Jake replied. Your technology might help speed up decomposition, while we can teach you the importance of sustainability. As the day wore on, their bond deepened, and laughter filled the air. The aliens began to joke about their awkward attempts at using human tools, and Jake found himself laughing with them. It felt surreal, yet heartwarming. They were no longer just observers of his world but participants in it. In a moment of reflection as they took a break under the shade of a nearby tree, Jake thought about how much he had learned from them too. They shared stories of their planet's challenges, their struggles with food production, and the ways they adapted to their environment. Their tales were filled with wonder, and Jake realized that they were not so different after all. Maybe we can collaborate on a project that combines our methods, Jake suggested, his mind racing with possibilities. What if we create a hybrid farming technique that blends your advanced technology with my organic practices? It could lead to something incredible. Zektar's eyes widened with excitement. This idea excites us. We can use our technology to monitor soil health, while you guide us on the organic side. Together, we can develop a new standard for farming. Jake's heart raced at the thought of such a project. His humble farm could become a beacon of innovation. I love it. We could even invite other farmers to join us, share what we learn. Imagine the impact we could have. Indeed, Zektar nodded, a serious look crossing his face. This could change the way we view agriculture, not just on your planet, but across the cosmos. The weight of their shared endeavor hung in the air, an unspoken promise of collaboration that transcended species. Jake felt invigorated, buzzing with anticipation. Let's get to work, then. There's so much to do, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning. As they resumed planting, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the fields. The gentle hum of nature surrounded them, a comforting reminder of the life they were nurturing together. Jake couldn't help but smile, feeling a sense of fulfillment he hadn't experienced in years. Hey, if you're enjoying this journey with us, don't forget to drop a like. It really helps spread the word about our story. Jake called out, feeling a connection to a larger audience who might one day hear their tale. The aliens paused, glancing at him with confusion. Like? What does it mean? Jake chuckled. Just a way for others to show they appreciate what we're doing. It's a good way to encourage more collaboration in the future. With renewed energy, they carried on, planting seeds side by side, blending their techniques and building a friendship that would last well beyond their time together. Each moment felt like a step toward a brighter future, one that promised to change not just their lives but the world around them. Together, they were not just cultivating crops, they were sowing the seeds of understanding, compassion, and innovation, ready to blossom into something extraordinary. As the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and lavender, Jake stood in the field, reflecting on the whirlwind of events that had unfolded over the past few days. The initial fear of the unknown had transformed into something beautiful and profound. He looked over to where Zektar and the other aliens were gathering the last of the equipment they had used during their time together. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing that this chapter of his life was coming to an end. Their collaboration had yielded remarkable results. The hybrid farming techniques they developed had not only improved the efficiency of Jake's farm but also provided the aliens with insights into sustainable practices they had never considered. The bond formed over shared knowledge and laughter had grown deep, transcending the differences that once seemed insurmountable. Jake had shared stories about each animal, and in return, the aliens had shared tales of their own home, filled with wonders and challenges of a world vastly different from Earth. As he turned to walk towards the barn, his heart ached with the thought of saying goodbye. Zektar approached him, his large, expressive eyes reflecting the warmth of their newfound friendship. Jake, he began, his voice a melodic hum that resonated with sincerity, we are grateful for everything you have shared with us. You have taught us more than we could have imagined. Jake chuckled softly, wiping a tear from the corner of his eye. I should be thanking you all. You saved my animals and showed me a whole new perspective on life. I never thought I'd learn so much from beings from another planet. Zektar smiled, an expression of understanding passing between them. It is in our differences that we find strength. We will carry your teachings back to our world and share them. Perhaps this will begin a new era for our species. Jake nodded, feeling a swell of pride. I hope so. And if you ever need anything, or if you want to continue our work, you know where to find me. He gestured toward the sky, where the stars were beginning to twinkle, a reminder of the vast universe beyond their reach. The other aliens gathered around, each of them expressing their gratitude in their unique ways. One of them, a smaller being named Lyra, reached out and touched Jake's arm gently. Your compassion toward your animals is something we will never forget. It is a lesson in kindness that we will carry with us forever. At that moment, Jake felt a connection that was almost electric, a reminder of how powerful empathy could be. He looked at them, realizing how much they had inspired him to become a better farmer and a better person. You all have changed my life, he said, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling within him. I'll miss you. As the spaceship prepared to depart, Jake felt a shift in the air and anticipation of what was to come. He understood that this was not the end but merely a new beginning. The aliens would return to their world, armed with knowledge and stories, and in time, Jake knew they would meet again. The thought filled him with hope, a promise of continued collaboration and friendship. Before we leave, Zektar said, glancing toward the ship, we would like to give you something. With a gesture, he produced a small, shimmering crystal from within his pocket. This is a token of our friendship, a communication device. It will allow us to stay in contact across the stars. Jake accepted the crystal, feeling its cool surface against his palm. I can't believe this. Thank you. His excitement bubbled over. I'll use this to share updates about the farm and our progress. I can't wait to hear about your successes, too. Indeed, Zektar replied, a twinkle in his eye. We will be eager to learn from you. And remember, every time you look at the stars, know that we are looking back at you. With that, the aliens boarded their ship, the engines humming to life, and Jake felt a pang of sadness wash over him. He waved as the ship lifted off the ground, watching it ascend into the twilight sky until it became just a speck among the stars. He stood there for a moment, feeling a mixture of emptiness and fulfillment. Hey, if you're enjoying this journey with us, don't forget to drop a like. It really helps spread the word about our story, he called out to the invisible audience, as if speaking to all the unseen souls who would one day hear of his adventures. As the engine's roar faded into the distance, Jake turned back towards the barn, a smile slowly creeping onto his face. The animals were waiting for him, peacefully grazing in the field, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had always cared for them, but now, he felt inspired to improve their lives even further. Jake grabbed a bucket of feed and began walking toward the chickens, his heart lighter than it had been in ages. "All right, girls. Time for dinner," he called, the familiar sounds of clucking filling the air. It felt good to be back in the rhythm of his life, but with a new perspective that made everything seem brighter. Days turned into weeks, and the farm thrived. Jake implemented the techniques he had shared with the aliens, and soon, his crops flourished like never before. He started a small community program, inviting local farmers to learn about the sustainable practices he had adopted, inspired by his extraterrestrial friends. Word spread quickly, and soon, neighbors and friends were gathering at his farm, eager to learn and grow together. Every evening, Jake would gaze at the stars, the crystal resting on his bedside table, a constant reminder of the bond he had formed. He would often think of Zektar, Lyra, and the others, wondering how they were doing. There was a comforting thought that their lives were intertwined now, no matter the distance. One night, as Jake sat outside sipping tea, the crystal suddenly glowed bright blue, startling him. He picked it up, heart racing with excitement. "Hello," he said tentatively. "Jake." Zektar's voice came through, clear and full of enthusiasm. "It is good to hear your voice. We have been following your progress and are eager to share what we have learned as well." Jake's heart soared. "This is amazing. I've so much to tell you. The community here is thriving, and I can't wait to hear about your planet's advancements, too." Their conversation flowed easily, laughter and ideas exchanged over the vastness of space, and Jake realized that he was not alone. He had friends beyond the stars, and together, they were working towards a brighter future. The connection they had forged was a testament to the power of understanding and compassion, bridging the gap between worlds. As the night deepened, Jake felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had fed the animals before dawn, and the aliens had watched, but now, they were part of something greater, a story of friendship, growth, and the endless possibilities that lay ahead. The universe felt smaller, more connected, and for the first time in a long while, Jake knew he was exactly where he was meant to be.